welcome back, everybody. Another episode of the Summoner Scuffle. This time we have Kingzora versus AstroCosmos, and Fuzzy will give a brief introduction when we gets to get started in a bit. But both these players are very active in the fiction lore section of the Discord server, and so we'll also have 250 Origami on to help us commentate and go over some of the lore of this game that we don't get to talk about much. But real quick, before we get started with that, I will cover the boring, non-lore related stuff of the faction overview. So let me go to this image. So we got Vanguards versus Eternal Council. I just love any matchup that involves Vanguards. I think it's fun just how they're I don't know, struggling in the fight just to and just units reclaim Sun factions fun. Let's talk about them first and how the Vanguards work. I feel like everything kind of revolves around Sarah's ability. We have 3 attack value, which is good, and every time we attack, we essentially get 1 magic, but in the form of reclaiming a Citadel magic from our Citadel card from our discard pile. So we potentially have an infinite game plan if we can keep Sarah alive, and we have some tools for that. We have Citadel Knights that can protect Sarah, which is awesome. And then other than that, the game plan is pretty straightforward. We have Guarding Spirits to also protect our units, keep them alive. We have some draw card abilities. Intercession on Paladin lets us draw cards. We can heal our own units with Temple Priests. What I feel like, yeah, you'll start to see here is that Sarah wants a lot of magic to get units out and flood the board very quick and just make it an overwhelming tide of Citadel units. And Citadel archers help with that a lot. You discard units from your hand to get extra attack, but you still get the magic for them. And so if you were planning on just discarding heavy anyways, this is just a good way to get extra value out of that. And if you can get a bunch of units on the board, like you have 3 Citadel units on the board, and you're also like just way ahead on magic, you drop Colleen. Now you could just for the rest of the game, every time a Citadel unit is attacked, it's protected, and so it takes essentially has like +1/+2 health, which is just insane. If you can, if you can use the sun part of your deck to draw quicker, get more magic, to then use the protect part of your deck to just protect your units and just carry it away. And then Renewed Hope is like maybe the most insane event in the game. It's just awesome. It's a ton of fun. Summon any phase during your turn. Sarah can attack. You can drop a unit in. You can move and then drop a unit after the move. Bing bada boom, etc. And then let me just go over Edia real quick. Edia is different. So we also have the sun symbol. So there's a lot of draw card abilities here, but it's expressed more with this weird tact of learn that we are stealing our enemy's events, and we are perpetuating our own events with Edia's ability persist. And when you then scroll down to our 3 events, we have one that draws cards. We have one that damages units when we draw cards, and we have one that gives our summoner extra strength when we draw cards. So you sort of start to get the gist of the deck. It is a combo deck around drawing cards, and lo and behold, 2 of our commons also draw cards. Scholars a fair bit. Advisors, also when they move, advisors have this handy ability, Warn, to push your summoner 1 space after they attack, which we will use to keep Edia safe, but still attack with her, because when we attack with her, we get boosts. So we just sort of build up boosts on Edia, then we go huge. We have some crazy insight turns. We persist it for a little while. We kind of burn through our deck, maybe a bit faster. And then we also have abilities that let us bury cards, like Exploit. We can put a card in the bottom of our deck. We put Katu on the bottom of our deck. Once we get there, we just have kind of an insane champion for the very end. And so we sort of early game we accumulate boosts, mid game we spend the boost, do some crazy things, end game we have Katu. It's like the 3-punch game plan here. And that's the decks. And so we'll go into the matchup overview real quick. Let me see if I can get the other commentators on here. Oh, hey, Origami, how's it going?
Hey, it's going really good actually. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. So this is 250 origami, or wait, no, sorry. Am I stupid?
It's
25
25
origami.
origami.
That's really, did I get that wrong in the in the post that I made? I might have. Uh well, either way, could you would you mind telling us a little bit about like how you got into Summoner Wars?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got the game for Christmas of 2022, and me and my little brother started enjoying it. And then one day, all of a sudden, I just had a question about the Sky Spear Avians. I was like, huh, I wonder if there's a community that might be able to answer the question. So I look it up, and sure enough, there's you guys. And so I asked the question about the avians, and then that got answered, and I haven't really ever left since. But yeah, that's how I got started.
Yeah, I think I can similarly relate. I'm like, oh, I want to check this rules question, and oh, now I'm just here forever.
Yeah.
Uh, that's funny, and so part of the reason we have you on is because we want to talk about the lore of Summoner Wars, something which unfortunately I don't have a ton of experience with, but Fuzzy does, and
Ah,
she'll be here
yes.
soon. I'm curious to hear about what interests you about the Summoner Wars lore.
Ooh, that's a very good question. There's a lot of things. Mainly
Yeah,
just because it's a very fresh slate to start from, because this is the second edition of Summoner Wars, and I know the first edition had a lot, in fact, of established lore behind it. But with this, it's a lot of the same faces. Like there's the Vanguards and some changed faces like the Polar Dwarves as the Guild Dwarves, I think. But yeah, it's really interesting to get to just sort of really get a good look at the characters and see, hmm, what do you what would your standing on an issue be? Why would you want to be fighting in this war? And yeah.
yeah, yeah, awesome. Oh, and I see Fuzzy is here as well.
Yep.
Hello.
Here without visuals, I am listening to you guys, but I switched computers a third time, so have patience with me.
It only takes three computers to get the
Oh my
stream to
gosh.
work.
Well, one computer is hung installing Apple updates. The other is prompting me for about a million useless inputs, and this third one should be the charm, but it's going to
Woohoo.
take me a moment.
Awesome. Well, maybe while we wait, and Origami, if you're okay with me putting you on the spot here, I'm curious to hear about the lore background of both the Vanguards and the Eternal Council.
um, Vanguards and Eternal Council. So it's kind of interesting because when I first saw the Vanguards, I initially thought, well, they're going to be just your generic good guys. And interestingly, they're, I believe, one of the only factions that are mentioned in the little introduction of the rulebook with the little flavor text about Rhett Talus of the Fallen Kingdom finding the first summoning stone and whatnot. Um, and then Dane Lightbringer finds the second. So I looked up the name, and apparently he was a descendant of a character in the first Vanguard's, in the first edition Vanguard's deck. So that got me thinking, well, maybe they are the ones who put up a fight against the Fallen Kingdom. And so they founded a city called the um there was a canon name for it with the story mode series, but I forget what it was called.
Yeah,
Um, but the main at the heart of the city there is, I'm envisioning this very large and grand, like cathedral style building almost, but it's called the Citadel, and it's actually mentioned on several of the cards in the text. There's the Citadel Paladin and the Citadel Knight and so on. And so I believe that is sort of their base of operations. Yeah. And as for the Eternal Council, funnily enough, I actually think the Eternal Council is stationed within the Citadel as well, because one of their cards is the Citadel Advisor. And so that got me thinking, Citadel, are you in the Citadel with the others? And so I was thinking that maybe it's sort of maybe their headquarters are sort of a library with lots of underground rooms within the Citadel as well. And yeah, that's kind of my read on just their overall setup and where they are within Atharia.
And just to fill everyone in, we don't have like a canon, and
Yeah, none of this is actually officially stated by Plaid Hat.
Intentionally among those of us in the fiction and discussion channels on the Discord, we're here to explore the world together. But we've had a couple different takes on Eternal Council. 25 Origami and one of our contestants, AstroCosmos, have had different takes. I think Zora's, written about them too. And the goal really is just to flesh out these worlds in our own heads. Sometimes the headcanon aligns. I think the Discord collectively has decided that Clink and Silts from the Sand Goblins are sisters. I think we just made that up, and no one disagrees with it, and I think no one can think of them as not sisters. Jexic decided that Brub and Grognak are brothers with kind of an epic falling out over technology. You see Brub toting that giant gun, and you wonder why he's not part of base Tundra Orcs, since his ability fits in so much better there. But I mean, we've had people that wanted to ship Grog and Brub, Grognak and Brub. So it's fine. Plaid Hat Games hasn't supplied us with as much lore as we want, so it's been part of the fun to be in this community and just bounce ideas off each other. And just but there is a lot of first edition lore that some of us are more familiar with than others. So I mean, in first edition, definitely Vanguards and Fallen Kingdom were set up as really pure good versus pure evil. Vanguards wanted to fight the evil, and all these other factions are just squabbling with each other. I think in second edition, we just have so much less. And, for me, with so many new characters, new summoners, redesigned summoners, I kind of see it as our playground. If Plaid Hat Games isn't going to give it to us, then, what else are we going to do other than write about it ourselves? And there's been some great stuff, not just in the fiction channels, but kind of sprinkled here and there throughout the Discord. I think ever since 25 Origami took a serious interest in this and really started digging into the lore, I think the vibe on the Discord has changed. I think people share their little pieces of headcanon much more readily. And there's more of a collective sense of, design and exploration in this.
And that's just so cool, because I remember, oh golly, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember posting that very first I even had a name for it back at the time. I called it 25's take on Atharia, and I just did it every other day. It was just my little view on just the sort of vibes behind a faction, a little bit about their character and how they found their stone, and just sort of why they do what they do within the war across Atharia. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like there's something like I love the speculative lore too, and just like I know there's stuff for first edition, but like there's something about the Summoner Wars art, like, and I started with second edition just picking up the cards, and it's just like every faction, like you feel like there's a story there, you feel like there's so much behind it, and I feel like it's so easy to just come up with headcanons about what's going on, and try to fill in the gaps and tell the story there. There's something just so inviting about these characters and this artwork. So
Oh my
I'm very
goodness.
curious to hear about it.
I could spend an entire scuffle talking about the artwork. I mean, it's been one of the biggest draws for me. Just like the characters come alive, and I also, let's see, am I You know what? I need to mute my your Twitch stream. Okay, were you getting an echo for a second before I muted your Twitch?
I think it's fine. I think you're good.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. And just housekeeping 25, do you have the link to the Twitch stream? I want to make sure that you can have access to the chat once once Spen goes live.
Yeah, I've got the Twitch stream opened over here in another tab as well.
Okay. It takes a moment to get used to juggling all these tabs and have a favorite
Yeah.
arrangement and keep track of things.
yeah, and I
I
will give
famously
them. Yes. uh,
yes.
I'll real quick give them the go ahead to get started, and so they will send us the link in our chat, and so click on the link that they send us right now, so you can have a real time of what's happening in the games versus my Twitch stream will be a bit of a delay.
That was quite upsetting when Ben saw the kill shot like a half second before I did. I was kind of pissed about that. You spoilered it, Ben. And then I was like, fine, I'll watch this on Twitch.
Yeah, it'll still sometimes happen, like with just looking at the game link. Like just
That's true. Just
sometimes
whoever.
someone's computer is better, someone's internet is better, and they just they get the edge. Um.
All right, so I have the link.
I'm
Getting
attempting to
there.
get signed in.
Yeah, skill issue on my part.
Always skill
Here we
issues.
go, yeah.
Technology skill issues. It never ends.
Yeah,
All
but
right, we have a move from
We're here.
Astro. We are live. Game on. Night versus night.
Oh yeah. Ooh,
yeah,
that's early.
Yep.
I mean, the early part we're still kind of thinking. You know, we're chatting during their think time.
Yeah.
Really, in terms of gameplay, you know, both these factions kind of have one thing that they really want to do, and you know, kind of a good but not infinite toolbox for doing it. You know, Edia wants to build up boosts and eventually turn on her cannon and attack for 8 bows herself. And I need to watch on the Twitch stream. I don't have my pause things turned on. All right, I'm gonna be a half second behind because I'm not gonna sit here and twiddle settings on the stream. All right.
You're good. And we got a hit on the knight. The advisor failed to kill the priest, but we're seeing the classic Edia is protected.
Good
And
shield
the
play,
vanguards
yeah.
don't say it again.
It was a good shield play there with the hiding
Yeah, for
area.
sure. Yeah, I feel like you see a lot of that. Though sometimes it's easier said than done to find a spot where she's safe. But maybe against the vanguards in general, I should imagine there's not too many tricks, and so it should be fairly easy for Edia to find safety, and I think that will help her out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both these summoners are trying to personally make the attack while their commons keep them safe. You know, what Sarah really wants to do is get a safe shot in, use her ability, and be protected in one way or another by those Citadel Knights, which
Yeah.
many think are the best unit in the game.
Oh, absolutely.
So right now, though, she's just trying to get, you know, we're just trying to get Sarah in position. Vanguard's opening can be a little bit frustrating because, you know, it's debatable, you know, I won't even get into the Citadel Archer debate, but it can be tough to move up. It can be tough to move up enough for Sarah to do her thing. All right. You guys actually need to hear the fort, hold the fort for a second.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Carry on, carry on.
I do think it's good, honestly, that they gave Sarah a bit more ranged power, because it's in games like this where you're dealing with kind of slow moving factions, so there's not as much chance to move forward. and you're already struggling to pull a lot of moves with the Vanguards. I'd say that's one of their main challenges. So giving Sarah a little extra ranged game, I feel like was a really smart move.
Okay, Elias. And then when Dad gets back,
Yeah,
okay,
it
Elias.
it makes it feel like it's worth it. Like you have something to protect. Something uh like you have these Citadel Knights abilities that you can use to protect whatever you want. But then it's just like before when we were just protecting a 2-attack Sarah, it's like like
It's
is it
not all
even
that.
worth getting the magic?
Ooh, they went around the other way. I was like, why would they chance that one damage from the engage?
Yeah, it's uh I've done that a lot. What sort of game do you feel like you'd expect between the Eternal Council and the Vanguards? Like who's trying to get to the long game, who's trying to push up?
Dang. I'd probably say in this case, usually these are two very late game factions. Like if they can survive through the early stages, they've usually got it set. So I think this is ultimately going to come down to probably Sarah using her her Citadel recovery ability
Yeah.
to just keep the knights coming. I think it's really going to end up being Sarah having to push that because she doesn't the unlike I messed that up. Adia, unlike Sarah, does not have any way to bring back her units. So I feel like she's going to have to rely on possibly Dominus Katu. I bet we could see him in action in this game because he's a very tanky champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the more Sarah can like establish a board state, the better off she'll be because like you said, like she has that potential for the infinite econ game plan. Well, Edia does not, though. Katu will go a long way. I think what Sarah would be like most afraid of is taking 8 dice to the face at any
Oh
point
yeah,
here because that will just shut her down in a second.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
All right, Elias here. I'm gonna.
One second. Fuzzy, can you hear us? Oh, still.
Here, Elias, we're wait.
I just have Fuzzy muted for a second. Um, scuff. Yep, we're in a scuffle. Yeah, I feel like a lot of this match would also come down to Eddie just like trying to stop Sarah from establishing a mid board. Like,
Oh yeah, the Vanguards really can. If they get control of the middle field, it's I've seen that firsthand. It's very difficult to pry that away from them.
yeah, and Eddie like you feel like you want to get full use out of that. What's the one card called? Psychic Assault. Just to
Oh yes, absolutely.
but uh yeah, if as you say, like Sarah just has a ton of units on the board and is getting a ton of free attacks, it's gonna be hard to it's gonna be hard for Eddie to compete in the late game there.
Yeah. I think if Eddie were to manage to get out Dominus Malunar pretty early, I feel like that could act as a pretty solid counter to some of the um, to being able to have Sarah bring back more Citadel units. Because remember, if your opponent summons in anyone within 2 spaces of Dominus Malunar, they have to discard a card from their hand. That's brutal for a faction who's already relying on card recovery as one of their main strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I feel like
Oh, not happy with
Malinar.
merchant.
No, we need the archer. Archers are good. Get them in here.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I feel like I've been seeing Malinar like more and more. The more like at first, just like it seems really like really tough to use, but like uh, if you can just get him in the right spot, he can obliterate a lot.
Yeah.
He can just shut you down. The archer, yeah, Sarah's not feeling like she has a ton of options with that knight shoved up in front there.
Gotta pick off the advisor. Solid. Bam. Ooh, yeah. Let's see.
How many are we gonna discard? Hopefully we can kill the sage.
Oh, they've got Holy Judgment fired up.
This should go a long way, and that's what makes us sad about Citadel
Dang.
Archers. But
Whiffed.
it'll happen.
Well,
So, yeah, go ahead.
that that is going to be rough on that archer because that's at least one free damage probably because they're going to use exploit to bottom deck a card. And yeah, not to mention the potential for 3 hits. That is unfortunate.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of like when I first started playing like Citadel Archers, it was just like I lose all these cards and then you just do 2 damage. Like I hate
It's
this.
a gamble, yeah.
It's a gamble. But then when you think about like Kingzora's at 9 magic, like discarding those cards was probably good anyways. Like
Mhm.
if they can get out an early Colleen, that can really go a long way to the protection game plan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're right. Sarah's getting into the midfield, so I mean, we could see Renewed Hope sometime.
This is maybe kind of a random off-topic question, but I'm curious to ask you about like what you visualize with like an actual summoner war. Like what to you like a game represents? Like what is the tone? Is it like cuz a lot of times with summoner wars I feel like it's just like oh we're all just like having fun and everyone gets to get up in the end. But then if we're actually like thinking about what's
Yeah.
happening is it very it's got to be a lot more gruesome than that. Like and what do the board states represent for you and I don't know.
That's
Yeah, what would you say about that? Oop, I might have lost your audio for a second.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Oh, yes, Fuzzy, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
All right, let's
And
we've got
here,
some
I had
moves going.
just 1 second. It seems like Origami. Did you cut out for a second? I just asked a question
uh
about. Oh, I can
no,
hear you
I'm
now.
still here.
Okay. Did you have anything to say about like what the game states represent in your mind?
That's interesting because I feel like it definitely the overall tone of the actual like board game itself definitely kind of changes my view on how intense the battle was if people are actually
There's a
dying
whiff.
in this.
Yeah.
Because I have played some very hectic games of I think it was Sand Goblins, and with Sand Goblins, I think if a unit like a Rust Rider just is discarded from battle, I think that's more of just the vehicle got hit, the rider flew off, but he's fine. Uh, with champions though, like if a champion is taken out in the battle, I feel like they're depending on the faction they're with are either like they're hustled off the field so they can be healed later, or in some fanfictions case they don't make it out. But you didn't hear any of that.
Yeah.
um, or or if the faction is more magic-y, like say perhaps the breakers or so, just for an example, they're just zapped back to a safer spot, and there's no real damage. Or like in the case of the Fallen Kingdom as well, I really doubt there's that much loss of units there, because they're all dead most of the time anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. That gives us a lot to think about. So when we have we have the knights attacking each other, like thematically, what we just have two fortresses that are now converging in the center in this all out battle. Oh, that's interesting for the archer to attack the sage and not Edia. I might have
that could have been. Oh, and he's only got 3 health. Oh, that could end badly for the archer. The whole concept of gate. Now that you mentioned it, actually, the whole concept of gates in battle is very confusing. Like, in the sense of if it were an actual fight, because I don't get how you could just have a gate that opens up and you have units coming out of it. Where did the units come from to start?
Isn't that the idea? I think they just kind of got whisked away from whatever they were doing and planted on the battlefield.
like having dinner with your family. It's like, nope, time to kill people.
That actually is in one of Zora's stories. You know, we have the ancient scholar who.
Oh yeah.
You know, the ancient scholar who loves being in this academic environment with, you know, roomfuls of books and getting to study and do all these un-orc-like things, like be intellectual. And he finally walks up to Edia one day. It's like, so, you know, this place is heaven to me, but why do I keep getting whisked away to battle? You know, I sort of imagine that as, you know, he's just sitting there in a room full, you know, surrounded by books or whatever, and it's like, poof, you're there. You know, you've been summoned.
Yeah, I had an idea for my published fan fiction that I'm working on with Summoner Wars is the Vanguards are actually, they're gearing up. They picked out some of their best fighters who happen to be the fighters we see, or most of the fighters we see in the Vanguard's deck, and they're getting ready to go head out and aid the Polar Dwarves in a fight. But so what I had it set out as is, imagine that the Vanguards, because I think they're one of the more widespread factions, or they used to be, because Dane Lightbringer was such a famous king, and the other kings after him, or not kings, but the other leaders after him, would have been pretty well known and popular. I think the Vanguards would have had gates used to establish protection, if that makes any sense at all. Like, so say, if the people of the Polar Dwarves were ever in danger back in the days of old, they could have sent somebody through the gate to tell someone in the Citadel, hey, we're under attack. And then the Vanguards would come to their aid because they had a sort of alliance.
Oh, I like that. So they're communication channels and not just, you know, spawn points.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when in this chapter, when they get to it, it's going to be quite the big deal, because at least the way I had it written, the Vanguards really hadn't seen a lot of action. They were kind of just sticking to their own business, and in that time, that's when Ret Talus is on the rise and dark things are happening.
Mhm.
But another interesting note about gate travel, I purposely didn't include that in the section where Jacob and his fellows are heading to the edge of the Fallen Kingdom's realm, because if you think about it, why would the Vanguards have a gate down there? And plus, I wanted him to get some conversation in with what's his name, Midi Kairu, as well. But yeah,
I think that's fiction 101. You take away the powers that would make it too convenient for the characters to achieve their objectives and generate plot. Like, no
Absolutely.
gates for you. No gates for you. Hand of God.
Yeah.
All right, so that scholar has just been called
Oh,
into
man.
battle to serve as
3 hits.
both an attack and
Ooh.
a meat shield for Edia. All right, so we're getting, or actually, Edia is just
Still hiding.
sitting at 2 moose.
Oh,
All right, I missed a little bit of
Oh.
game.
funny. Did we not use Psychic Assault on the archer? I wonder if that was a mistake. I'm not sure what just happened there.
We
Might have
played
been.
Psychic. I think that was a misclick.
Oh,
I think there was a little I drew a card and now I can't unwind.
It's
I
possible they wanted to attack with the advisor to do warn. Let's see. Did they use warn with the advisor? They didn't. I mean, just cough it up to the heat of the live game.
Yes. I think one of the most important things I've learned in life from Summoner Wars, as in everything I ever needed to do in life, I learned from Summoner Wars, is to move on after
Yes.
one of these little brain
Wait, why did they
farts,
just-
misclicks. Oh wait, no.
Why did they
That
just
wasn't a
die?
mistake.
Oh,
That was
because
the last card draw. That was the card draw.
Oh,
at the end.
you're right.
Okay,
Holy
maybe.
cow, you can. I didn't even think about that as an ability. Like, you get that from the final card draw as well. Wow.
yeah. So
Well
All
played.
right, so things went as planned after all, and I was the one just not quite reading the play. Which
I missed it too.
That's okay. After my first commentating stream, where I commented half the game blind, that was when I realized I'm allowed to screw up too.
Woohoo. Yeah.
All right, so Sarah has the front of her gate clear now, though. If I'm Sarah, that's the one where I'm kind of breathing a sigh of relief, just that I can summon from that spawn point now.
Yeah.
That was probably the thing that was, it's like fingernails on chalkboard when someone is blocking the front of my gate. I just can't handle it.
It is.
Why did you say that? Now I'm gonna have that in my head every time it happens from now on. But yeah, Valna coming down. Yeah, I was gonna say, so anyone else notice Kingzora sitting there at 11 magic? I think that is exactly where you want to be
if you want to bring out
Vanguards.
Valna and Carlene.
Yeah,
Valna
and I mean,
is here to party, ladies and gentlemen.
and
Wow.
hopefully that's the game plan. Like, Valna will just help you get more tempo into Colleen in a board state. Like, it seemed like for a while there, it was like Edia had really taken control of the midfield, and Sarah was having to take some risks to take it back. But all of a sudden, it kind of looks like Sarah's game here. I don't know how that happened. Discard, 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 I guess.
Yeah.
Discard and hope to bring it back.
Oh, good point. Okay, moving. Ooh, moving into action. All right.
And leaving that gate spot exposed again.
Are the fingers echoing through your head on the chalkboard?
Yes, they are.
All right.
Chase 1000. Pop quiz. Without looking, what does Valna's second ability do?
That's the one where you get an additional. She gets an additional strength per Citadel unit within 2 spaces, right?
You win $1 million. Oh wait,
no.
You lose $1 million.
You lose $1 million.
Oh, her second ability is it's guidance. It's at the start of your turn. You get 1 or 2 cards, I think, right?
It's 2.
Yep.
Should be.
2.
That's
actually early, kind of, or almost early enough that it. The problem is sometimes you get Valnut out too late for it to matter.
Yeah.
This one is marginal. I actually do think the Paladin draw ability, people, say it's weak, and it kind of is, but it's definitely not nothing. It definitely gives that little, I think people underestimate that little bit of card flow that just greases the gears and keeps the deck moving. So I never want to sleep on the Paladin's ability, but Valna can definitely be frustrating when you just get her on the board too late for it to matter. 8 cards are left in the deck. It's borderline, but you never know. We haven't seen Renewed Hope yet, so maybe he's digging for Renewed Hope.
Oh, 80 is gearing up with
there it is, gearing up, and
gotta get it charged up.
That is a target.
Yeah, it's gonna like this is sort of
gonna.
Yep. Yep.
Man.
This is sort of the worst. This is the response that you're hoping that they don't have. Like Valna is great if she can stick, and
yeah, and
this is not how you stick.
Not gonna happen. You never know with range dice though. You got a chance, and like those 2 cards, like you said, just like 2 or 3 magic can just be the difference between getting Colleen out and not getting Colleen out. Oh, Holy Judgment's in her hand. I didn't even notice that with Learn. Are you kidding me? That's kind of awesome.
Nothing like an exciting Learn play.
Learn is good. It's definitely one of the harder events to pull off. Ooh. Okay.
Oh.
Oh man.
Are they gonna try to force Edia up one more space after killing Valna or something?
Maybe so.
I think that'd be a little bit hard to.
Oh.
And there we get it.
Oh.
Never stood a chance. Oh, that's a there. Okay.
And yet Kingzora still got 7 magic. Like,
yeah.
We're fine.
2 Renewed Hopes left. So, alright, are we gonna... Oh no, he can't proc that ability off the gate anyway. Alright, so we're just gonna mop up with some gate attacks.
Solid way to end the turn. Alright, what are they gonna do in response here?
7 magic, but need units and need board positioning.
Yeah, board positioning is definitely... It's kind of a struggle with the Vanguards, I find. Just again, because of that lack of... that lack of movement. They don't really have any way to get a lot of action going at once. It's more of a gradual build-up.
Like, that's what keeps the Vanguards honest and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
For me as a player, when I don't necessarily want to calculate all these Wayfarers movement shenanigans, I just want to play by the rules where you get 3 moves per turn, and I can let those processor cycles go to something else. I really do like the simplicity of the Vanguard's design. I do. We all have some issues with it. We all know what cards need to be buffed and what cards are never played, at least what the community consensus is. But really, just that core design really is, it doesn't take a lot to make the deck really enjoyable to play. The Sarah, the Knights, and 3 moves per turn, 3 attacks per turn. I think that's actually a big part of the deck's appeal, is that there's not a lot of fancy stuff. But then Renewed Hope is really my favorite event of the game. It's on summonerzoring.com. In my little profile, I have Renewed Hope as my favorite. Just because it is so thematic. It's so satisfying to play, as as a strategic move. And it's just so it's just so powerful as part of the theme, as part of the lore, as part of you're in charge of this holy army, and you might.
And on a more lore based note, like stemming from that, you know the art for Renewed Hope, right? It's got Sarah's like up there in front protecting Volna.
Yes,
that is what started one of my 2 quite possibly favorite ships in the whole the whole Summoner Wars series.
Nice.
Well, yeah, because so the idea stemmed from actually, someone just mentioned that they looked like there could be a potential ship going on there, and I was like, that could actually work. And I got to thinking about it. So by my ideas, at least, Volna was Sarah's like childhood friend, and so while Sarah and her family were basically in exile because I took that bit of the first edition lore that the leader of the vanguards, when Sarah was younger, like went mad and like had delusions and all that, and he accused the Eldwins and other families of treason, and ultimately Sarah and her family were put in exile. And during that time, Volna would go to see Sarah like every day if she could. And so when Sarah finally gets out, and you can read more about this later in my story, they actually get to have a very, very good friendship going on. And they're just very sweet. And I kind of view her as her personal advisor and friend. So that it's a very neat dynamic going on there.
No, absolutely. You know who your true friends are when they stick by you in times of adversity like that. You could
Yeah.
almost imagine Sarah's other friends maybe visited once or twice and then drifted off and got on with their lives, and Volna just kept coming back. Volna didn't lose hope. All right, we've got
Queuing up the cannon
second
again.
one.
The AD. We need a term for that. The AD.
I always
The
just called it the
ADNN.
canon. We should just put together a compendium of like Buffy speak for everyone's abilities that they can't. How everyone refers to card abilities they can't quite remember that don't have names.
Yeah.
The canon thingy. The fact that you even remember that Valna's second ability was called Guidance as opposed to draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely reflects, I think, on just a way to view this game. I was going to say earlier that Vexar.
Ooh. That was a good hit on the gate there. Sorry. Holy cow. Wait,
And
what?
the stolen holy judgment.
Here we go. Oh, wow.
Okay, so why we never even asked this. Why is the Eternal Council even attacking their own allies? Like, why are they attacking the vanguards? Like, why are they fighting this war instead of fighting the Fallen Kingdom?
Now that's interesting, and I had been thinking about that throughout the course of today. I was like, why would there be a sort of infight between these two? And then,
they killed Valna. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't they're not fighting over academic journals. They killed Valna. What is this?
Yeah. Honestly, my best read on this would probably be, I'm not sure. Maybe Sarah maybe just not one of her finest moments was, I don't know, maybe sort of clipping Adia's wings. Adia was trying to do some sort of mission for the council, and Sarah's like, I can't let you do that because you're part of our effort. You should be focusing on what the vanguards are doing. And Adia's like, well, enough of this. Now we fight. But yeah, it's quite weird because it would go against all of what I had that they're fighting. But the whole idea that it is a possible fight means that it could happen. Like that there has to be some reason for it.
I'm sure AstroCosmos and Zora will have their own takes on why they're fighting. Let's read the chat. So, Grotto. We'll get to that Grognak Koldak ship in a minute, but let's continue this thread. I assume the Summoner Stones bring out the worst territorial, power-hungry tendencies in the Summoners. Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
We've talked about this in the channels. I think a lot of people think of the Stones as kind of having this Lord of the Rings ring power.
In Harry Potter.
Yes, Horcruxes. And you think exactly.
Well, that's interesting because we see that in with Retalis at least, we see what it did to him. I assume he was just an average lord or something, but it warped him into a monster.
So is this Sarah
And
in like 50 years? Does Sarah turn into that?
well, the thing is, I think honestly, presumably by the end of my story, the saga or whatever, it will have ended itself. But I think in the end, she will end up not wanting that stone anymore, because I think it will end up causing some hardships between her and the people close to her, because it even if you are one of the best morally aligned factions, with the summoning stone in hand and the view that it can turn you bad, it would definitely make her do some bad decisions. Oh wait.
That's interesting.
Wait, what are they gonna do?
Oh, picking up an archer.
Smart.
Interesting.
The best unit. Yeah,
Very
yeah.
good use.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh.
Now
And they're
and
down.
a 2 for 2.
Easy.
Yeah. So the key to the archers is apparently don't feed them magic, and they'll actually use their ammo efficiently.
Well, yeah, they were buffed up with the Holy Fury or whatever.
See what I mean? We need this compendium of like just like what everyone actually like thinks of these abilities as in their head.
Holy cow, how'd they... Oh, wait, whoa, that was good.
Renewed hope and guarding spirits.
Oh, this is going to be interesting now.
Yeah, it looks kind of good all of a sudden.
Sarah is making a bit of a comeback.
This is actually what also another thing I love thematically about Vanguards is really that build. So many games come down to the end where she's such an end game player, which in a book you figure you imagine them being as, you know, like they're kind of against the ropes during the whole saga. You know, they're not giving up, but they're not gaining ground. And then you just get this final push towards the end. You have the army finally formed. You have the forces amassed. You know, I just love how just the feel of how a lot of Vanguard games end. You know, when you look behind on econ, there's more, you know, the opponent looks like, you know, you're further through your deck than they are, and then you just get these renewed hope turns, you get these Sarah ability turns, and you just
win it.
Finally push through. You know, it's such the movie moment, the book moment where, you know, at the end of the trilogy, the good guys finally win.
Yeah, that's honest. That is really how I'm kind of like, that's way off from now, because I still have a lot of other things I want to get in on that, which if I end up doing another one of these, which I kind of want to, because this has been great. But like, yeah, I have stuff like with the cloaks and things like that, which it would be like other sideline stories as well. But there is definitely going to be, they will triumph. The Vanguards will win it in the end, I feel like.
66 factions down the road, the Vanguards will finally win.
Yeah,
you heard it here first.
Yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting. I do like that it's gonna be so spread out, though. It's definitely gonna be a full-on saga by the end of it.
I love that. I really do. You know, and my point here was, I don't think you get that kind of saga moment unless the gameplay really does match the theme.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and that's just a testament to the game design that you really do have these renewed hope moments where you and I aren't just making stuff up. You know, we're not like trying to force a square peg into a round hole to come up with why these units behave like they do, why the cards behave like they do. You know, I think the story. You know, I think a lot of these stories that come off a game feel really organic due to the gameplay. You know, like, what is Edia doing now? You know, she's doing this flank move, planting a really forward gate, and you know, you can see that. You know, she's kind of this wizened, crafty battle leader that's still
got
at
all the
13 health.
sleeve.
She's at 13 health, and that cannon has gone off a lot of times.
And there's no signs of letting it stop just yet.
No. Well, she's out of boost.
Yeah. But still, she played both cannons very well done. Like very, very together. Gonna step him back? No. Ooh, okay, solid warn. Yeah, Adia, she's she's very crafty. I feel like that would be a lot of her enemies' downfall is they just look at her and assume, oh, she's old, she won't know what to do in a fight. And then when she actually gets out on the battlefield with her fellow scholars, she just has the better advantage because I think she, being older and wiser, she just has a better view of sort of everything on how a battle is going to go down. Where if you know what your opponent fights like, you would know how to counter them best.
I the fact that she's lived so many years means that she has a much less black and white view of the universe in general. She sees all these shades of gray that someone as young as Sarah doesn't necessarily see. Someone like Sarah is very, light versus dark, good versus evil. Edia sees all these nuances, but the catch is that her own moral compass is gotten a little bit gray over the years.
Yeah.
She knows when the ends justify the means. And she doesn't hesitate over those kinds of decisions the way, Sarah or Colleen or Valna might. Sarah or Colleen or Valna will have that, that angsty moment of, can I do this horrible thing for a good end?
And whereas Adia, she's just like, no, it has to be this way.
Yeah, it has to be. I've seen enough. I know enough. I know what's going to happen if I don't do it.
Oh,
And I will slit your throat.
I'm envisioning because I have never done anything with the Eternal Council yet, but I'm envisioning some very dark stuff going with. I say dark, but just very unexpected. Like Sarah would probably be there to witness Adia being rather ruthless in her eyes, I feel like.
Absolutely. Sarah's young and idealistic. Edia knows how the world works. Edia's lost all her illusions.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like some of that view also comes into play with the Savannah elves as well. With most of the elves, actually. I feel as if the elves... Oh, speaking of elves, there's Dominus Maluna. Perfect timing. With the elves,
This is going to be
they're
interesting.
a very interesting sort of group because I believe they and Adia probably have had a lot of conversations over the years just because they've both been around forever. The elves, I assume at least, are one of the oldest races in Atharia. So they probably have some of this similar views on things. Like they know in the end it's not all just one way or another.
I never thought of this and making it up on the fly. I feel like the elves have a lot going for them in terms of tradition and spirituality and
Yeah.
all these moral guideposts that have been handed down through generations and that are sacred, and you don't mess with them. I feel like Edia questions everything, and she's going to toss out the playbook if it doesn't suit her ends. I feel like the elves will be more bound by this is how we've always done it. And Eddie is going to be like, I have this massive library and I see it as a toolkit and I will wield it ruthlessly.
The toolkit of power.
Oh, absolutely. Like, she
Yeah.
knows the ancient histories, she knows how civilizations have risen and fallen. She's a historian, an anthropologist, you know,
And if you look at
but
some of the oh, sorry.
oh no,
Um,
she's a historian,
yeah.
anthropologist, and I see her as an agnostic. I see
Yeah.
her definitely as just kind of weighing the scales of all these belief systems and taking what's convenient to her. Whereas I definitely see the elves as having more of a shared culture, shared lore, shared sense of what's right and wrong.
Mhm. Well, along with that point, actually, I see that. You get people like Queen Maldaria, though, who, to me at least, kind of come across as a little more maybe playing with fire, quite literally in both sense. Because if you think about it, she has the Ember Beasts, right? And we've seen another faction that presumably has the original um source of ember creatures, the obsidian dwarves. So it
Oh,
makes me
that's
wonder if
true.
maybe the dwarves are a little more grasping and greedy when it comes to getting their power, and when they have it, they're not likely to give it up. And so the elves, maybe Maldaria in just a moment's bad decision, decided to investigate what was going on with the obsidian dwarves, and that's how she got herself on something that maybe people like Salundar and Abu Ashi were like, "Are you sure you
Ooh.
know what you're doing?"
Ooh, so
And
Moldaria got corrupted by the dwarves.
or maybe not. Maybe like I don't think it's a true corruption, but she definitely played with darker powers, and I don't know how that's going to play out later with our lore. But yeah,
Oh, I like that.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
I love that this is so none of these really you have Sarah and Rhett as kind of the compass points, and then all of the factions are just so deliciously morally gray.
yeah,
You really can dig deep into these motivations and it's like I don't always think of this stuff every time I play the game. Sometimes they are just units on the board to me, and the thing that I've been trying to say this entire game is Vexer literally refers to all these units as creatures. Like in Magic the Gathering, creatures. They're creatures to him. They're cards to be played with abilities and stats. And Waterdeep can kind of get the same way. He finds it weird that the archer is a ranged tank. He's like, no,
yeah.
like
It is
ranged
odd.
units are supposed to be fragile, and tanks are supposed to be tanky. Like, but I think the appeal for me is that the characters are so strong that I like this feeling of 12 human beings on the field. I don't
Yeah,
come from a background where they're either Magic the Gathering creatures or, like real time strategy game units where you're just kind of plunking down this, your tank unit and your air support unit and etc. They're human to me and it is personal. Like that's
oh, absolutely.
why game, it has great gameplay, but definitely the feeling of, a dozen players on a sports field. And I say sports field because I'm nice and not actually a bloodthirsty human being, but I enjoy the intense competition. But just
Yeah.
the fact that it's so personal with such colorful characters, like I don't care how realistic it is. Like Waterdeep was like, why aren't these people wearing helmets? Helmets are a good idea as a safety measure. And who cares about helmets?
Yeah.
Like,
To be fair though, on the note of them, just looking at them as people, I really like um how well Martin Abel and all the other artists did the art for this game. Mainly because I have an issue with fantasy art. If you've the
oh my
very
god,
first
don't get me
faction,
started. I'll let you talk, but
oh,
don't get me
oh,
started.
but yeah. But so like just I'll only lead with an example on the Vanguards. With the Vanguards, as they were the first faction I picked up, I was looking through the cards and I was like, oh god, there's a female leader. They're gonna make her overly sexualized or impractical armor or whatever. And no, like really, they did a very well done job with just designing everyone very practically built. And yeah, just very good armor all around for everybody. I really admired that for Plaid Hat.
Oh my
Ooh.
god, that's the biggest draw is that they went all out in second edition.
Yeah,
To have,
absolutely.
just these badass women that are actually doing stuff rather than being decorative. I mean, I'm not even gonna go on my rant about why stilettos on a battlefield
Oh
are
geez, like,
an
I've
insult.
seen
Yeah.
the first edition artwork for
Yes.
it was the Vanguards, wasn't it?
Yes. Valna had like sky high stilettos.
Jeez,
And
what's up with that?
it's an insult. It really is. But it's funny. I've definitely leaped onto the Discord and be like, man, this artwork is amazing. I am so glad that every single female character in every single deck is wearing practical footwear.
Absolutely.
I won't say I got pushback. I won't say anyone's like, yeah, no, you're wrong. I want stilettos. But definitely, it's not personal the same way for everyone. It's definitely, I'm like, hey, I'm being positive. I don't want to argue about whether the 1E art was bad. The first edition art was bad. I'm just here to say how much I love the second edition art. And at the time, I still felt I got again, not pushback, but definitely I felt like I was having to explain something obvious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I at the time that I didn't expect to be this deep into the community, and there was definitely a moment where I was just like, I bet you anything that Sire Tupa is female, based on the way we're having this conversation about the artwork and the clothes and the outfits. Who's gonna out themselves first? Like we're both hiding behind these usernames, and I'm like, how do you even ask? Like,
yeah.
She outed herself first, but I would have soon followed. I would have been just like, man, I I want to discuss fashion with someone. All right, let's focus back on the game.
Wait. Ooh. 3 hits on the night. Wham. That was well played. Melunar is not going to let that gate stick around for long.
There. Wait, why did we even see that renewed hope? Oh, wait. Edia has. Wait, who had renewed? Did I just see Edia with renewed hope?
Edia has guarding spirits.
No, okay. Why are we getting little flashes in the UI? Ben, are you seeing it?
Yeah, she had it in her hand. She stole it a while ago.
Ooh.
Yes.
That is going to be interesting.
All right, and a renewed hope in hand. All right. Is Chase 1000 hey, Chase, is that level 3 CPU there?
Yes, it is.
Curious. Okay, awesome. No,
There's not a single hit on Adia yet still.
No.
That is... They're
She's
playing
been
an
kind of rampage. I mean, and Sarah's got plenty of health on her Citadel units right now.
True.
But there's always this fear that when you run out of Citadel units, your
game's kind of over. Ooh, Paladin's out. Paladin is ready to party.
All right, Paladin.
I guess we're not going to be seeing Jacob this game, which is a bummer. I was ready. I was full and ready to talk about Jacob as well, because like I don't have to now because like he's not even going to be in it. But like I feel like for a guy who gets admittedly not the best views from some players, just because they think his ability is not all that. I, on one hand, am a go Jacob on both his gameplay level and from a lore sense as well.
Oh, absolutely, the lore. I really liked what. Oh wait, no. It was sorry, it was Zora. What Zora was writing about Jacob and Selendar.
Yeah, that was
Like,
cool. And I also from
like
like my
Selendar visiting Jacob in the middle of the night, and they go, they talk about his jealousy issues. They
and
talk
yeah,
about his relationship with Sarah. Like, please
well,
go
yeah,
on.
because like he's the older brother who missed out.
Yes.
Because yeah. But yeah, so he's definitely got like some of that jealousy, like why wasn't he the leader here? Which makes me kind of think that if there was ever a way to play with variant summoners, like a different summoner choice, like because wasn't that a thing in first edition? You could have like different summoners.
Oh, they're completely different decks. Colby actually talked about it in the podcast, how that just confused everyone because, people think you have to watch the first movie before watching the second. So,
Yeah.
but, it was essentially, as if Valeria was Sarah's second summoner. People
Yeah.
didn't quite understand that, this is a new deck, new gameplay, independent from the first. But yeah, I liked the lore around the second summoners. I definitely enjoyed seeing how a faction picked up a second summoning stone and what the relationship was between the first and the second summoners.
It's
You
definitely interesting.
you definitely had it. If I recall, it ranged the gamut from let's work together, like Sarah and Sam Farthen, like now she has a stone and her most trusted general has a stone, to I
Yeah.
think the Savannah elves, they just betrayed each other. Like,
Oh, you're right.
like Abuashi's second summoner. Damn it, I don't remember. Someone's gonna correct me somewhere. But it was definitely interesting how these power dynamics played out. Once there's two stones, one faction, are you going to work together or against each other? Oh, Colleen being Colleen. That was a
Ooh,
hit. That was a
solid.
hit even with Colleen.
Only
Right.
Oh my
oh,
goodness.
whiff. A whiff.
This game is really something wild because I've been thinking it's gonna be in Sarah's favor for a while, ever since Edia missed the assassination on that gate when she rolled 3 dice on the 2 health gate on the left side and missed.
And didn't get
Yep.
anything.
I
Yeah.
was thinking it's like, okay, that's gotta be over for her, like just gonna be overrun by Citadel. And now Kingzora is sitting here with 000 for
It's
and a
not looking
discard.
promising.
And Edia probably still has Katu. Probably. I mean, she sort of tends to, and like guarding spirits. Like it seems like we're well in Edia's favor at this point.
I would guess that she has Katu, but I would say that discarding Katu makes a lot of sense in matchups where you're not trying to win on econ.
Yeah.
I would say that discarding Katu is one of those plays that feels really bad, but there are definitely matchups and game states where it's the right call. You just need that magic more, and you're not going to reach end game anyway. Especially the ones where both summoners are like super cannons. But that said,
Ooh.
all right.
Colleen's holding off Malunar up there. She realized the trick.
I want to know what dialogue is going on between those two in that scene in the movie where they kind of stop fighting and start like just shouting lines at each other.
Oh my! That's really interesting to. Now I'm just envisioning what Colleen would say to Malunar, let alone for some other conversations as well. Because you're right, I think that's definitely not just a thing for the movies like that. I could see writing that easily.
No, it can be a quiet moment rather than a battlefield moment. But for this game right now, I want to know what they're hollering at each other across the battlefield. as they're in this own little like pod away from where the actual fight is going on. Colleen is far off from the knight she's supposed to be protecting.
Yeah, do your job, lady.
Well, I want someone to write like a short movie of that one time I had a game where there was an Arbiter of Peace and a Bog Shaman in the corner of the board, completely surrounded by gates, like just like cut off from the rest of the world, just like taking like 10 turns to take each other out. Like, what was happening there? Like, what was going through their mind?
Arbiter of Peace and a bug shaman.
Like,
I
was
know
it?
they're like slinging insults back and forth, but they can't actually kill each other.
Or maybe it was intentional. Maybe they were prolonging the moment. Like, what was going on here?
I don't know. Maybe we should be shipping them.
Oh,
Maybe that was like just this quiet interlude, and we mistook love for war.
Oh my word! Man,
Except I guess they did kill each other eventually, right?
well, yeah.
So maybe that
who
wasn't the
won
most
that?
healthy. That wasn't the most healthy relationship.
I mean, but like, don't we all?
Isn't that the truth?
I
Oh.
feel like a lot of the relationships in Intharia are going to end that way.
Yeah.
This is.
Well, it's funny
But
bringing
yeah,
up.
like we're just gonna have Colleen and Maluna just wail on each other for no real reason.
Yeah.
Like they have nothing to do with the rest of the battle anymore.
I could see that I could see from a lore perspective, I could see that be kind of personal though, because I think they're both trained in magic. Because, I mean, Malunar, obviously, his whole faction's magic. But Colleen, we see, has a sort of like, oh, shoot, hold on. He's going in for the kill. The sages are going in on Sarah right there. I shall return to my point in a second. I got to see this.
It's a shame there's no holy judgment for this one.
Closing down the hopes
going
of
at the gate, like, get out of here. I meant
to. Oh.
That's funny. I guess Sarah is kind of trapped. It seems sort of like a spite play, but I see it as well.
Well, Sarah lives for at least one more turn, but yes, I feel like it's a toilet paper which way the toilet paper faces type battle, like whether you go for the kill shot first or this irrelevant attack first.
Oh yeah. I usually just do the irrelevance because I'm gonna add insult to injury here. So like, you're going down, I'm taking all your stuff with me.
I feel like the people who feel one way, I feel like everyone seems to have an opinion about this, and it's as unchangeable as how you hang a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah, it kind of fits Adia though, honestly, because I feel like she would definitely be the person to be like, your gate's going down.
I have 1,000-year-old grudge against that gate, and I am going to remember that grudge.
Oh yeah, I could see it. Ooh, good hit. Oh, good night. Good night to Sarah here.
Yeah, it should like any units, and it should be it here with holding the renewed hope the entire time. Hopefully we have it. Advisor.
That's one of the most satisfying Sarah plays ever, like just in any game, is when the opponent goes after your gates and you're sitting on a renewed hope. Like that is just an emotionally satisfying way to play Sarah.
Thinking,
try the Shadow Elves. No, go ahead.
Thinking you've done something markedly cool all the while. So that's what you think. Oh, and it's over. Man.
Honestly, like kind of close there. Like 5 range dice on 3 can surely miss. And
true.
All right, so
wow.
So what does this mean for Itharia?
GG's all around there. Holy cow. For Itharia, that's interesting. I would honestly say that was probably a very strict lesson from Adia. Like I doubt Sarah actually died from that, but she definitely learned a valuable lesson from that fight.
Ooh, Adia put Sarah in her place.
Yes. It was definitely Sarah was probably being. I don't see her as all that feisty, but she might have had something that just rubbed some idea for the Vanguard for like the Citadel as a whole, like their next best movement. And Ada is just like, no, it's not going to be that way. And if you keep it up, I'm going to show you what's happens. And Sarah kept it up, and Ada, they took it to the battlefield.
No, I can
Yeah.
see that. I can see that. So we're letting the contestants take a moment. Ooh,
Got one.
and
Hello,
Okay.
hello.
Hey, how's it
Hello.
going?
Oh, part of my mic works. Oh, pretty good.
awesome.
Yeah.
And maybe I like to just have everyone introduce themselves when we get started. So maybe while we wait for Kingzora to get here, AstroCosmos, how did you get interested in Summoner Wars, and what keeps you playing? And maybe I'll add a third question. What if you're interested in answering, what interests you about the lore of Summoner Wars?
Oh, Summoner Wars? Oh, I thought this was the Korean MMO tactical game that everybody's raving about. I'm still trying to get my direct, you know. I could probably go on a long-winded story about how I got into it, but the short form is first edition. I've got a bunch of friends who are really big into board gaming, and he just introduced it to me and wiped the floor with me. But I was hooked at that point in time, and yeah, I think you have a number of people who've played first edition on here before, but I wasn't really on the forums or doing any competitive stuff until second edition. So it was just of friends and families that I played with. But yeah, when second edition came out, I was really excited and I got in as soon as I could. And yeah, been playing ever since.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wait, there's a
awesome.
couple of other questions. I'll apologize ahead of time. I'm a little jet lagged, so my body thinks it's like 3 in the morning.
Where are you
As for the
coming
lore,
from?
yeah. My interest in the lore, because I wasn't like in the competitive scene at all. The really only source I had for like information on first edition was the Plaid Hat website, and their old one had like these comment sections on the cards when you loaded them up that were people talking about them, and it also kind of like gave a blurb about who they were or like how they fit into the general world and everything. And I just ended up reading all of that because that was the like only strategy guides I had access to at the time.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. And then like how does that progress into second edition for you, and what the lore is, where we stand in second edition?
Um, I think I just one of the things I really like about second edition is the faction designs, and I kind of argued this a bit in the Discord because I guess I'm a little argumentative. I really like just the way that they've reimagined and kind of made the visual aspects of the different factions more cohesive, and I think it's kind of like the lack of lore on the official side has kind of given my imagination a lot of fertile ground to make connections that aren't explicitly made. So just looking at like the connections between, say, Red Talus and the Obsidian Dwarves, not just like the Hellforged weapons, but also the fact that Red Talus has like demons and Balzar has the Ember Demon as well. Just like making those little kind of design crossovers kind of get my brain thinking and wondering like how would these two kind of relate and compare. And I noticed in the Discord other people were kind of interested as well, and I think in the chat as well, Origami started writing first, and that kind of got me jumping on the bandwagon, I suppose.
I'm just so flattered for that. Like that's really kind of cool. How I'm not trying to brag, but like that's just amazing. Like
It
I'm
is.
just I never thought that I'd have that much of a difference on how a whole community like views the lore for a game. Like that's nuts.
I think that time was right for it. And I mean, you just jumped. I actually still remember the first question you asked, which was, so what kind of a bird is Guilford anyway?
Yeah, Guilford. That's where it all started. Holy cow.
But I mean, I think there's really this kind of, this group creativity when someone's like, well, why don't you message Martin Abel and you come back and he's what, a Philippine eagle?
He's a Philippine monkey eagle, I believe. Yeah,
Philippine monkey eagle. So,
which is interesting then,
and then
because yeah, like
and someone else, posts a picture of one of these birds, and like, it just kind of snowballs. I think creatively in a way with a group that's just harder as one person.
and yeah, it all just kind of swept up, and people were saying, "Oh, maybe he was in danger, like his
Well, he is,
species was
yeah.
endangered."
Yeah. The Philippine eagles being critically endangered definitely informed, how you thought of Guilford and Guilford's
Oh
people.
yeah, because I had that one where he was like the defender against a loot ball. Oh, that the one against the loot ball. That one brings a tear to my eye still. Oh yeah,
Well,
that was a good one, and that definitely shaped a lot of how I plan on working with the avians later.
Yeah. I mean,
well,
I think
maybe
there's definitely a village effect to all these lore conversations. All right, Hargrada
absolutely.
says Guilford is stunned by his fellow birds, but is accepted by other summoners as a useful warrior. Or shunned by his fellow birds. I can't read. Wait,
That's
why is Guilford
that's
shunned?
that's really
Now I
funny.
want
Well,
Hargrada on the chat to expound on this.
I see it gameplay wise because it seems like Guilford never really gets played in the base decks, but then in deck building, we're starting to see
Yeah,
him more and more. But
Oh my god,
maybe real
Guilford just
quick.
yeah.
Well, he's pretty good
No, I'm
in
just gonna say thematically, someone tell me why Guilford is so good in deck building with the Mountain Vargath. Because I think he is, but
thematically,
I want to know the lore reason why he sided with these goats instead
you
of his
know,
own birds.
that's actually interesting, and I might just have something for that. Just real quick, my best theory would be that I believe Philippine monkey eagles are actually found in like forests at somewhat higher altitudes. So maybe when he was flying back to where his old village used to be, there wasn't anything there, of course. So he went flying further and he flies over and sees the mountains where the goats are. And that's how he gets to working with the Vargath later.
Oh, I love that. There's a story in there. There's definitely a story in there.
Absolutely. I love it. It's just like one question.
I would
And
think
it's
that
partly inspired by deck building reality. He is good in Mountain Vargath, and I think if the gameplay doesn't match it, you're kind of, walking uphill. But I just love it when these things click. Like, go on, whoever I was interrupting and cutting off.
oh yeah, sorry. I don't know if you guys could hear me. I hopped on chat like 5 minutes ago. I know that in first edition, Quen was friends with, I think it was Malagula, one of the Shadow Elves. So I could see, so Quen goes to the highest parts of the mountains a lot just to be closer to the lightning that she controls. That's like from 1E lore. So I could see her maybe befriending Guilford, who just flies around to the highest parts to, I don't know, check out the scenery sometimes. And
He probably does it oh, sorry. He probably does it to get solitude as well, just because he's all alone. He doesn't have his original people anymore. He probably doesn't feel very welcome or just like not exactly a true part of the existing avians. So he probably is up on the mountains to just find some space for himself.
if you really wanted to get, I think if you really wanted to get like Watsonian and tie it to his game powers, you could say that his ability is to push people away. It's even called bully. But so his game mechanics are he pushes people away. That manifests in his personality, maybe that he's seen as somebody who is prickly to be around.
Oh wow! So like he's the bully just because like a quote unquote bully just because of his personality. Wow.
It might not
And-
even entirely be his fault. I think mechanically it might be that his wing beats are just so powerful that sometimes when he lands, things around him get tossed around.
Oh.
And the
That
mountain
makes
So it might
guard
not be
are
his
okay with
fault.
that because that's their shtick too, mechanically.
Yeah.
You know, he's accepted for moving stuff around rather than ostracized.
Yeah. Wow. Now I want to go write that up later.
Yeah, we haven't introduced Zora yet, though.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want-
yeah.
maybe.
Please tell us about yourself.
No, yeah, real quick. Yeah, we just had AstroCosmos introduce himself. Kingzora, if you don't mind, like, what got you interested in Summoner Wars? And yeah, what keeps you coming back? And then maybe also, what interests you about the lore of Summoner Wars?
So a friend of mine, we had a board game group, and he had first edition Summoner Wars, and it had never been, those kind of games had never particularly been my favorite, but we played it. Actually, my first game ever was as the Vargoth, and I won because of a lightning strike from Quen. In first edition, it was just that you could re-roll, or not re-roll, you could do a second attack for one magic. Much less interesting ability than the current one. But I won my first game from that, and just looking more into the mechanics of it, it seemed like just such a fun, deep, but sort of easy to explain game that's just kind of like chess plus a collectible card game, you know, or a living card game, whatever you'd want to call it. And I don't know. I you know, when I found out about second edition, I was a little skeptical at first. I thought that they were never gonna, you know, they had sort of finished out first edition, made all 40 decks, and I wasn't sure they were going to do another one. But I came back, and so many of the, you know, what few flaws first edition had, so many of them were fixed. You know, the ability to turtle was changed a lot. It became a much more active game. Aggressive factions are not only like able to be used, but actually quite good. You know, cave goblins, especially in deck build, are one of the best factions in the game. And first edition was such a defensive, kind of clunky game sometimes. But I just think that you can tell that people have another decade of experience in game design now. That the first edition was kind of lightning in a bottle at first, but they've learned way more about game design in the interim. And I think you see that going into every new deck now, where there's just interesting ideas all over the place. And it keeps me
Absolutely.
coming back because there's just so much there.
Absolutely.
As far as the lore, I really liked the first edition lore because it was kind of grand, but it also, like, there was this big overarching narrative that had a lot of mystery boxes in it that maybe we never would have found out. We certainly never did find out. But then the individual units, you had all these little vignettes that some of them were serious, some were funny, and it just gave you a little insight into the individual soldiers in this war. And I didn't remember a game that really did that. So now I know, oh, not only do I have these commons and these champs, I kind of know what their personalities are a little bit, because their vignettes either have a little blurb about them or people are talking about them. So you get the idea of, well, here's what other people think about each unit. And then I think for second edition, the most intriguing thing was there was no lore yet. And you sort of had to say, are we going to try and reconcile this with like the first edition lore? Do you completely separate it? And I think, you know, we were talking about it. As soon as Origami started writing stuff, we realized, oh, we can just fill in the blanks here because we don't have to wait for official lore. And then everybody can have their own take on, you know, is this a completely new world? Is there something actually connecting the two? If so, why the big differences in factions like the Breakers, who are like a very kind of Avatar: The Last Airbender inspired faction now, and originally were just like totalitarian psychic empire that didn't seem to have any like Asian influence.
Yeah.
I just
And I
thought
think
of something is I think high elves are the new benders.
Oh, they are. They really
Yeah.
are. Like they obviously would view themselves as good, but to everybody else, they're very much a more evil faction. I like that.
Oh,
Kind
I
of makes
love
me
it.
think. It kind of makes me think now that my initial reading on that, the Breakers might honestly just get a bad reputation because Takulu and a couple of her fellows, the Mind Witches, can mind read, but everybody else can't. I honestly think they might actually be leaning a little more towards good-ish. But yeah, I do kind of like that my read on them is sort of leaning a little more towards the truth with the release of High Elves.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is a digression, but I was just rereading some of my old favorite sci-fi books from childhood, really. And I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Joan D. Vinge and her cat novels, but they're all about this person with psychic, basically, hybrid from an ancient race with psychic powers. And it's really how about all these telepaths are ostracized for being able to read minds because people fear these abilities. And,
Ooh.
it's really good. I actually highly recommend it. It's kind of a little bit, I don't want to say old school, but it's definitely science fiction from gosh, 80s or 90s, I think. And, I never fail to put in a plug for my favorite female sci-fi authors. I think there's often a lot of different takes on, technology and space opera and spacefaring races that, well, but, point being, like, that definitely informs how I think of the Breakers now. Like maybe these mind powers are seen as just being creepy and invasive and awful, and we've got to shut it down by people who don't have it. But maybe when they have their own rules, their own standards, their own civilization, it's just part of life. It's like everyone owning a cell phone or something.
Well, I really liked your little vignettes about the Breakers. I think he had two where it was, I don't know if you talked about this during the match or not, where I think they were going to a bar and they were watching the wafers dance, and
Oh
you
yeah.
yeah, you just had a really good one where they were talking about, I think one was a mind witch, I forgot the name, sorry, and then her companion was a deceiver, and there was a bit of the talk about the kind of the mind reading, but you wove in a bit of that, like people kind of view them with suspicion and a little animosity, I suppose, due to their powers, which I really
Yeah.
enjoyed. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so behind in all the things I want to write about the Breakers. I've been
I'm still
promising.
waiting for that Takulu piece.
I've been promising it
Yes.
forever.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
have a prologue written. This is what happens when every single off season I'm like, I'm going to take a break from League. I'm going to write my fan fiction, and then Ben's like, "Hey, you want to do these Summoner Scuffle?" And I'm like, "Cool, new project." And it sets
So it's
the
all
fiction
Ben's fault.
behind even more.
Woohoo.
Yes, Ben, it's all your fault. But no, I've wanted I've had kind of this interaction between Takulu and Leonardo from the Cloaks in mind for a while, and just really I don't want to dominate the airwaves talking about what I'm gonna write, but it's definitely just such a strong facet of my own enjoyment of the game. Like when I first joined the community, it felt kind of like all there was the competitive community, like, and at the time, people just, kind of obsessively banging on this drum of nerf polar dwarves, buff vanguards, nerf polar dwarves, buff vanguards. I'm like, is that all you guys talk about? And, I think, since then, for one thing, they actually have finally nerfed polar dwarves and buffed vanguards, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah,
And
it really was
second,
a good change.
no, but second, I think there's just more venues and more avenues for people to enjoy the game. Not everyone cares about the lore, but and not everyone cares about competitive play. So I just like having all these different facets, and some people, don't really do either, but they play with their partner at home, and I've just really enjoyed the directions the community has gone since I first joined. So this is the $1,000,000 question, though, because from the moment that level 3 CPU, if Chase is still around, from the moment that level 3 PU finally asked, "Hey, 20 me, do you guys want a channel of your own? Do you want just to
Oh
have a
my
fiction
word.
channel?"
A fair bit of excited screaming may or may not have been involved when I was replying. I read that message. I was like, wait, let me reread that again to make sure that was right. But yeah, that was
I will say
crazy.
having our own channel kind of like encourages me to write more because it felt a little like spammy people's strategy discussions by throwing in like,
I get
here's
that.
Retalis and his cultists just running around the battlefield. So it was good to like get a place where we could not be interrupting other people's, complaints about Svar being overpowered.
It's kind of fun, though. Maybe I'm just kind of the the troublemaker. I'm like, cool, let's invade these strategy conversations with like a discussion of footwear. No, but I'm saying, do you guys remember the pretty much the moment the discussion channel opened? What was the first question asked?
What was it? What was it? What was it? It was. I want to say it was about something ship related. Let me check.
Yeah, it was really good at ships.
Oh, it was. That's right.
Oh, look. The first one was. Oh yeah, it was from Igor Bone. It was so. Who are we shipping? Am I doing fanfiction right?
So that's the $1,000,000 question. Ben was like, I don't know about the lore. I'll let you guys lead. But no, I want to know who Ben personally wants to ship in this Summoner Wars universe.
Oh yeah.
Oh, goodness, I didn't think about it. But let's go like Olet Ball and Guldas off the top.
I like it.
Some
I like it.
secret love story buried within their ash and bones.
Oh,
Within
the
all the
Fallen
flames.
Kingdom has a heart after all. Oh, maybe they really were lovers in like a past life, like as human beings or something, and then they got mutated into these grotesque forms, but there's still something vaguely human about their emotions towards each other.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
What's I forgot how many people in the current podcast played any first edition?
I think just you two.
Yeah, I'm a new timer.
I am too.
None of you guys played first edition?
Nope.
Nope.
I stopped first edition because I kept sort of almost wanting to introduce the game to my husband, then boyfriend, I think. But I kept pausing because of all the sort of the turtly gameplay and like the sort of kill your own units for magic stuff. So I was always on the verge of wanting to try out Summoner Wars at home, but just not quite pulling the trigger. But something about the lore kept me going back. Like I kept stalking the lore as new factions came out, even though I kept not buying the game each time. I kept re-reviewing the game, getting sucked into the lore, and then just not diving in until finally second edition, even though there was no lore, like the gameplay had improved so much that finally I was like, let's do this. All right, this poor... I mean, is Goldos even human?
That's a very interesting thought because he was definitely something. I view him as like he's like this Frankensteinish creature. Like I just call him like the Hound of Retalis, basically. So he's like dog or wolf-like, maybe. It's weird, but yeah.
He kind of took first edition had a unit named Skull, SKHULL,
Oh,
and
that's
that was very much the art was like Guldas. Guldas in first edition had, I think, one of the better first edition art. It was this big demon with like giant manacles on his.
Oh, he's from that
I
Syrian
remember
stack.
that.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember that. He was like chained up and
Yeah, he was like too strong with the thing, and when he did too much damage, it would damage your summoner.
Ooh, whoa. I mean, I can see that easily being like that Elute Ball is like Like he's forcibly restrained when he's not in battle. Like he has some sort of spell or almost like a rune or some kind of thing keeping him bound when he's not in a fight. And
Yes.
so when Rhett needs to crank out the heavy firepower, he's like, all right, this is all you, man. He takes the spell off him or whatever and just lets him go to town.
I've always figured that it was probably something like, talked about obsidian dwarves earlier. I figured that a loot ball might be similar to the Ember Demons, where the unit that is sacrificed, he basically requires some sort of food, some sort of sacrifice to battle. Like you're saying, otherwise he's restrained. And I think mechanically with the Ember Demons, that's represented in either taking a life from the summoner or the boost. Like a boost is magical energy that the demon can subsist on, but they can also eat life energy.
What's really scary is, if you think about it, frequently when I play a loot ball, he usually gets summoned in by sacrificing a Hellfire cultist. If you think about that and the artwork we have of the blood summon, maybe like maybe Rhett has his following of Hellforged cultists or whatever their names are, and in order to send in a loot ball in a fight, maybe that's what they need to do. Like they sacrifice one of their own cultists. That got dark really fast. I'm stopped.
Well, I think that's one where the art definitely informs it, because I think they are kind of dark. I've always assumed that their clothes have some sort of accelerant on them, because they're clearly like carrying a flame that they will use to immolate themselves with.
Barrel.
Yeah, they got like barrels of gunpowder.
Oh, right, they have like a barrel. Yeah. They just.
So maybe they go up and fire, like they die, go up in fire, and from the fire of them dying, a loot ball like rises from the fire. That is good. Wow.
I really like the build pairings that they gave them, because first it kind of references the alliances that they did, but I think also it just like it makes the factions more interesting, because instead of just being like an undead faction, you're wrapping in this kind of like fire and like explosion element to it, which I think gives a lot more like creativity.
I like that. Mm-hmm. I like that Fallen Kingdom has non-undead soldiers.
Yeah.
It's like a cult following behind it.
Yeah, you get some people who basically betray humanity, right? To be on the side of Ratalis, because he
world ending. Yeah.
I think one funny thing about the art informing a lot of the lore, though, is that the one like inside joke, I think, is that there's that one official art piece that has a loot ball coming out of a gate, and it's like, no, that's not right. He doesn't do that.
He can't do that.
I'd forgotten about that one. Where was that anyway? I remember someone posted it on the Discord. I don't remember what official source of artwork that would have been from.
It was a background for something, maybe one of the intros of new decks. But yeah, I know it is official art, and I do remember someone immediately pointed out, like, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It was good.
Well, I remember someone else pointing out that the event art on Edia's Learn event featured one of the abilities that was most useless to her, the Ice Ram.
Oh, yeah.
She's knocking Scar around with Ice Ram, which you can't do anymore.
Yes, that too.
Oh, she can't.
No.
Not even with deck build. No, you couldn't even deck build.
That was the Polar Dwarves nerf, is that the Ice Ram no longer affects summoners.
Well, could you even put a structure that could be moved or forced in a deck build with Adia?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think natively you can.
Maybe you could get Kalal. You could get Kalal going, and you could. Nope, there's no structures still. Wow. Oh, my word. Now I'm going to be laughing about that every time I see that card.
You guys were discussing ships. I haven't done much romantic shipping, though one artifact of first edition in my fiction and my lore so far has been that Selendar and Jacob Eldwin have some sort of long-term friendship.
Yeah, I like that.
Where Selendar is I interpreted it as being a sort of like mentor figure, but I think in 1E it was just that he was the one who visited Selendar. He wanted to show him like what Ralal the mercenary was doing to all the summoning gates, that he was destroying them all. And in that case, it might have just been that he was like the emissary for the vanguards. But I thought it made sense for Selendar to have friends in a lot of places because he's the guy who's trying to piece everything together.
That was what I always liked about the first edition lore. I do remember that. And I feel like it carries through to the new Shadow Elves too. I really like the light and dark theme.
Because they're not inherently bad or good. They're very much they're trying to get the good for everyone, and that might clash with a couple other factions' views. But in the end, it should be all right for everyone.
Well, I think Kingzora did a really good, I don't know if it's an explanation or I don't know what else to call it, but like a mythological piece about the origins of Cylinder and his family, and it was talking about the gates that everyone had to go through. I thought that was really good, and I thought it was really a clever way of kind of like working in the build symbols into the lore and the background of the faction.
Yeah, thanks. I, kind of tied that in from, when Selendar was writing in his diary, his discourse on Shadow, basically, that people misunderstand Shadow. They think it's the same thing as darkness, and it isn't. Shadow is innately always connected with light. You don't have shadows unless you have light. And that just people have the natural association of, shadows are dark, so they're darkness. And it's actually, we're trying to strike a perfect balance between light and dark. And that's how the family initially got power, by going between the cave with the light and the darkness. And obviously you never succeed in like a perfect balance, but I think that's why I sort of continued Selendar as being a very, very thoughtful person, someone who has a summoning stone, but does not just isn't just trying to say, how can my faction get more land, get more victories, whatever it is. Really, why is everything happening? And what part do we have in this?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that's...
I almost see light and dark as... it's almost... You see light and dark as different axes from good and evil. They don't even mean the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think I liked that in first edition you had very little, white hat, black hat morality. The little you had was that Rhett Tullis is like pure black hat, bad guy, undead kingdom trying to rule the world. And the vanguards were relatively white hat, although the lore did have them plagued by a lot of like political infighting, and the Eldwin family were prisoners for years before the stone chose Sarah as summoner.
And I've kept that in my work too, because I really like that. I don't think the vanguards are all perfect. I really like that idea of being there, like some nasty secrets they're hiding.
Well, I think, and I could be misremembering, but I believe that the Citadel, which is where the Vanguard originated in first edition, was the like central structure or governing body of Heap, which was a city where all the mercenary like bow grinders and spear grinders came from, and all the mercenaries were like dirt poor and completely like in poverty, and I guess getting press line into front line of the battlefield. So it kind of spoke to how the Vanguard, the shining beacon, and yet the city they rule over is falling apart around them, which I thought was kind of neat.
Really well, I think. It was a refugee city. It was a refugee city for people fleeing war. I always find it tough writing fan fiction. I don't, to me, this is fantasy, and I don't necessarily want to get too deep into, an actual refugee camp. I don't want it to be political. I want it to be fun. But I feel like it strikes a good balance between its fantasy, its escapist. We're reveling in these bloody battles, and yet it has just enough bite to it to feel real. The city of Heap, I think, captured that feeling to the right amount. Not in any way that makes light of actual refugee camps, but in a way where you feel like there's stakes to these battles. There's stakes to these battles going on in Itharia, and it's not just pieces on the board. And I'm just laughing at all the things people call these creatures. I was saying Vexer calls them creatures. I think some of the chess players call them pieces. Waterdeep and I think tactical gamers call them units. And I definitely think of them as characters.
I'm curious.
Yeah,
We're
I
here
think
calling them people and giving them names.
I think that's a really good point that, you don't want to get too deep into real world stuff, and you don't want to be sad every time you play a game thinking about like why these people are fighting. But it is interesting to think that, like, okay, let's try and imagine this as at least having reality within its own world. Like, people are going to be fighting for different reasons. It's not that
Yeah.
everybody's like a big fan of their summoner or their team or whatever, and they're just super amped up to fight. It's like you said, Heap had the grounders who were just poor and had to be mercenaries to just live day to day. So within individual factions, I like to think you have, your volunteers, you have your people who are kind of bureaucratically need to fight, and you have people who are press ganged into it, like who really don't want to be in this war, but have to be.
I'm really curious about like that question of tone in this game. Like Hargrada had brought up in the chat earlier while we were playing that like that I think that summoning stones could be like this corrupting like influence on summoners that make them power hungry and territorial, and so I'm wondering about that in particular. Like, I mean, I guess that is like the only piece of lore that I've really that I've seen that's official is it was Reptalis that found the first summoning stone, and then everything is bad, and then more people start finding summoning stones, but then that ends up turning to infighting rather than taking down Reptalis. And so, like, is this ultimately like a kind of a bleak narrative about like being corrupted by power, or is there like what sort of what yeah like how should I be looking at these summoning stones and what they do to the summoners and like just the battles of Itharia in general? What's the tone there?
I mean, I think that's it's a nice bit of lore that everyone can kind of build for themselves. I know in my Eternal Council lore so far, Edea sees the stones as being they're very similar to, but being the energy that Lantea, ancient Atlantis, used to power their society, or a Calcom, and that they're sort of very refined bits of that, and that every new stone that gets found, all of the summoners feel a little bit more power. There's some sort of connection that you get to everyone else who holds one, and the idea that it's sort of almost that they're amplifying each other, and that when there are finally too many of them, something really big is going to happen, and it might be something really bad. It's up to people to decide. But I think that's sort of how I'm looking at them now, that they're amplifiers of some sort of power, and things get more dangerous the more of them there are. And as we
I
know,
love
there's going to
that.
be a lot more of them.
And that's
I
finally
love
what
that.
brings about the breaking point that kicks the war into full swing.
So we've only been fighting skirmishes so far. We haven't even gotten to the real war yet.
Well, maybe like I think like big clashes between games you get between just certain factions that are always intense. I think those would be major scale battles.
Right.
But yeah, like God,
But
I
we
can't think of
haven't But we haven't had like 8 summoners versus 8 summoners, like the real,
Well,
you know.
nah,
Big throwdown.
nothing like that. That kind of comes into play though with more like deck building,
This is
and stuff.
true.
I feel like
Yeah.
because then you get the aspect of alliances, like these factions are kind of banding together. And here is an example of like a pretty large scale battle that they had.
Right. No, I definitely feel like the one-on-one summoner versus summoner intensity is, just both from a gameplay and thematic standpoint, what makes this game so powerful. Like, it is my daily dose of high intensity. For that reason, like, it is personal. So I
Well, that's
really
what
do like the dueling nature of the games as well. But it makes it hard sometimes to figure out how it all fits together in these, this puzzle of like, what do they all want anyway?
And I kind of like how I'm a big advocate for Plaid Hat not writing a lot in terms of lore, because I think it's going to end up kind of being individual. And there was somebody who posted, I think it was Gror, and maybe somebody else, and they're basically just doing a write up of one of their on tabletop battles and how it played out in their own lore. And I guess tying back into Ben's question about tone, I think it can be whatever tone you want it to be, as long as the Plaid Hat themselves kind of take it from a meter away and just let us kind of run with what they provide. And so one of the reasons why a lot of my writing stuff is just kind of really vague, so it can kind of slot into different narratives or different perspectives. But the other thing I really like is like Kingzora's building epic about this whole Atlantean subplot and where these stones are and how they tie into it. Or I think like Origami's really got this more personal narrative running, which is quite interesting as well. So.
It's a wide open sandbox. I mean, I love kind of the deeper dives that we've all been doing into, really, again, our pet factions.
Yeah.
But, and just really this intense world building for the one faction that for whatever reason you have this connection to and want to explore more. But I really love like the drive-bys people have been doing where someone just posts
Yeah.
a battle report, that
And then it just
requires
gets,
no background and, no backstory, no world
Well,
building.
there's this one person who showed up recently who's just like really fascinated with the linguistic history, specifically about the Phoenix Elves. I love
it's
reading about his
fun, right? Is
thoughts,
their name?
like the way he's just taking things. It's really fun how just people react to different aspects.
Oh my god, it's so Tolkien-esque. Like just this like almost like the story hangs on the language. I
Yeah.
don't always know how to respond, but I just love seeing all this. And he was asking for permission too, like, oh, am
I
I
know.
allowed to write about this? I'm like, go to town. No one
Absolutely,
asked us
yes.
for no one
Yeah.
asked any of us for permission.
Well, I think
We
that's
can't stop.
actually, I think that's a really cool collaborative part there, because like the one thing that happens when you have multiple people writing the same factions occasionally is that we're going to have contradictory stuff. We all have our own view on this, so we're not going to massage everything together, and we don't have to. But if you have people doing like the linguistic history, the cultural history, if someone wants to make like really detailed maps, like that can fit with just about everything.
Oh my god, I would love like a map maker to like sail in and straighten out the geography for me.
Oh my word, yes. Because I'm still running off of the first edition map right now and kind of just throwing in factions that didn't have strict locations, however I can. But like, if we get some map maker, I'm gonna go crazy over that. That's crazy. That would be awesome.
But I definitely
No, go on.
I definitely agree that I like, kind of getting like minimal input from Plaid Hat, because like, I was writing Eternal Council, and I wasn't always planning to have the Crimson Order involved there. I didn't even know what their backstory was going to be. They could have been super modern vampires. But the very small lore, the paragraph we get, has Daemar has been around for eons. That's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
okay then. So he's got to have some sort of relationship here. And I haven't written it yet, but in the continuation of my story about Edea and Daemar, Sekhmet he learns to summon from one of the books that Lantea has. It is a demon that is a guardian of secrets. So that's where he first learned to summon it. So it's something he takes with him when he defects. But yeah, that was a very small push of, oh, well, this guy's been around long enough that they clearly would have had contact. Like, this was the most prominent society of the old world and a guy who's been around for a long time.
Something you need is that little spark. Just that little something to start with. Like if you're doing improv, like just getting a prompt.
Yeah, the thing that it did for me was obviously, I'll probably leave it somewhat vague, but clearly the Lanteans can live a really long time. Idea is still alive. Dominus Katu is still alive. Ancient Lantea fell a millennia ago. So they have some sort of immortality that can be as nebulous as anybody wants it to be. But then Daimar took the other path to immortality. He chose to be undead. And I saw the clash there of, why would someone do that? If you already had a cleaner way to be immortal, what might cause you to go through it the undeath way? And currently I'm thinking about, well, there's a philosophical clash here. But he finds it arrogant that people cling to life in that way, in kind of a, weaker mortal form. So it was mostly a difference of philosophies of life, which is why he chose a different way.
Sometimes the thing I struggle with fanfic is like trying to come up with stuff that I can write in a reasonable amount of time rather than this thing that's like its own novel.
Yeah.
Like what you're describing, I feel like could be a novel if any of us had the time. And
trust me, like if you guys do ever want to put, you guys or any of the other fan fiction writers of Summon Wars, if you ever decide to put your stuff on Archives of Our Own, I'd love it because I feel lonely on there. I'm the only person with the Summoner Wars story written on there. Like, it's the only work tagged in that fandom, which is like, it's so sad because there's so much untapped writing potential there by people outside of the community. Yeah,
I definitely might at some point, and I think that it would be good to have, because I sometimes have to look up my old stories on the Discord. So it's like I should definitely have them somewhere in just like a central repository. That's as good as any.
There's still a few stories on the Discord, I think, that are kind of lost forever in the channels that were written a little bit before the channel existed. I'm not sure that everything in the fiction channel actually is everything.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going through them earlier and I could have sworn there was a story that I read that I didn't imagine, but that wasn't in the fiction channel. And I could not think of which one it was, but I was just like, I'm pretty sure there's something missing here.
Oh gosh, I had the same thing. Like there was one, and you know what? I think it was the one with the ancient scholar that was kind of getting summoned out of nowhere and asking why.
Oh yeah.
Was that the one that's actually missing from the fiction channel?
It might be.
In the if you're talking about mine, it's in the Eternal Council of one.
Yeah, I would at least link to it in the fiction channel just so we don't like all forget that, forget that it exists. I wouldn't forget that it existed, but I would just be like, how do I hunt for that thing?
I mean, Discord has a good search feature, but it is iffy.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, it's always you have to remember like some keyword or something about it. So probably if you searched for his name, you'd get it. I think his name is Bragg.
I'll be right back, you guys.
No worries. Although I guess we are kind of reaching 12 o'clock.
Yeah, we should probably wrap things up soon. But any last questions or comments
I
about all of
lost
this?
I lost track of who's going to be right back. Like I don't want to hang up without saying goodbye.
Yeah, for sure. It's origami.
Okay.
I think it was origami, because you muted.
Okay, no worries. No, but I guess we should wrap up. Any last thoughts, like Ben said?
I mean, for me, just thank you for having me on, and thanks to everybody, especially Origami, for sort of starting this ball rolling, and it is a really interesting aspect that keeps you coming. It certainly keeps me coming back when I sometimes get burnt out from the game, because this is a great game, but it's not a perfect game. Nothing is. And, there are definitely things that can cause some burnout. Someone's deck in particular, I won't say who's in is I feel dirty using it. I have my Shadow Elf build now that has the just blood summon and lots of boost building, and I just won a game with it. I'm like, this is just so good. Mostly just because it's a strategy that you can pilot no matter what your opponent is doing most of the time, and those are always very strong. Whereas there's so many decks that it's like your tempo and strategy very much gets dictated by what you're facing.
Absolutely.
So basically, whenever people get sick of Ben summon decks, we go out and write fan fiction.
Yes.
So motion for Ben to create the most obnoxious decks possible in order to drive everyone away from competitive play and producing literature at a rate that I want to consume, which is much more. I want more than people can write. I'm joking. I'm the same way. I keep thinking that I'll take a break from League and write the stories that have been kind of eating at me, and then it never happens because I want to do another League season.
I think also there's probably some, we could write a little bit of lore around. It seems very evil for a summoner to be using blood summon that way. That they're they're using it very practically at first. Hey, someone sacrifices a bit, I get another person out on the field, but that's like, why do you keep hurting me? You're not summoning anything else. Like, well, I kind of just need it. The undead warrior needs it, so take one for the team.
I mean, it's like corruption within a corrupted faction.
Yeah.
Once there were rules, about how blood summon worked, and even if they were evil, there were rules. It was lawful evil. But blood summon just pushes it from lawful. Yeah, and then Ben showed up. And Ben showed up, and the Fallen Kingdom got corrupted even more from lawful evil to chaotic evil.
I blame Balzar for it.
Congratulations.
And now when everyone's sick of competitive play, we can, if you like what you've heard here, go over to the fiction channel of the Summoner Wars Discord. It seems like there's new stuff there all the time.
There really isn't. Unfortunately, we don't write fast enough. We make stuff up on stream a lot faster than we write.
Well, we need more people. So
absolutely,
feel free to join in and add your voice.
Absolutely need more people. And no judgment either. We're just having fun. We're not critiquing anyone's writing. We're not giving grades. We don't grade each other. We don't even edit each other. We're just having fun with our little shared universe.
And with that, I think we're at time here, so we're gonna have to wrap things up. So thank you everyone so much for coming on. This was a great discussion. I really appreciate it.
Great,
thank you for having me,
everybody. Thanks for having all of us.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. I will see you guys around, and thank you again.
See you around. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.